What's going on, guys? Since everybody seems to be enjoying some of these videos on the YouTube channel, I'm going to expand the repertoire and start a weekly feature here. This is going to be the 49ers positional roster evaluation. Now, this one is post week one after the win against the Lions, pre week two against the Eagles. We're going to go through position by position. I'm going to give grades. I'm going to give my evaluation. We're going to take a look at what the 49ers have following, obviously, injury attrition every week. There was plenty of that in week one, and we'll use it to set the table for week two. So make sure you're subscribed to the YouTube channel. The audience is growing nicely. I love doing more and more of these depending on the demand. And so far, the demand has been good. To begin, I want to give some big picture context for the 49ers performance in the 41-33 win over the Lions, because I'm seeing way too much complaining on social media, way too much hand wringing. Everybody seems to be really worried about the last couple of minutes of the game. I get it. Yes, emotions were high. The Jason Verrett injury wasn't fun for anybody, but we need to be honest with ourselves. The 49ers put together a dominant performance for 55 plus minutes. In fact, when you factor out garbage time, take a look at what I have here right above my shoulder. This is EPA, expected points added, the advanced efficiency measurement of every single team in the NFL in week one. You want to be further to the right and further up in this graph. Look how far the 49ers are ahead of every other team in the NFL. They're way further to the right. That's a measure of offense, expected points per play, and they're way higher than most teams. That's a measure of the expected points per play prevented by the defense. So look at the 49ers all the way up here in the corner. Look at other NFC West teams. You have the Rams up there. You have the Cardinals there. You have the Seahawks there. These diagonal lines are team tiers. So if you're above the right line, you're a tier one team. And then tier two, tier three, tier four, tier five. Guess what? The 49ers are a tier one team, and the rest of the NFC West is also in the tier one after the first week. Now, I'm not pretending like the Detroit Lions were any good. By the way, that graph factors out garbage time. I know, I realize the 49ers almost blew that game in garbage time. But if we're going to accurately evaluate how the 49ers are performing, and if we're going to handicap how they're moving forward, what needs to happen moving forward, we do need to look at this game logically. And logically speaking, the 49ers were dominant. They did what they should have done against a bad Detroit team. They went up 41-17. And then, yes, stuff got weird. Jason Verrett tore his ACL. Kyle Shanahan got spooked. He started making substitutions. George Kittle had an onside kick clang off of his helmet. I mean, if Kittle just recovers that onside kick, the 49ers win that game by 16 points? And everybody's happy right now. And this graph that you're looking at up here, the 49ers have their logo up in the very left, even with garbage time counted. If you do it without garbage time, the 49ers are still a tier one team. I could show you that chart later. But my point is, for illustration's sake, when you look at that chart, the 49ers are tier one by far during the time of the game where their starters were fully in and they weren't licking their wounds after a Jason Verrett injury. So that is the context with which we're going to hit these grades. I think there's room for improvement still necessary for the 49ers, despite this impressive showing against the Lions. And I'm going to be grading them strictly because, as you can tell, the NFC West is a damn good division with a bunch of those tier one teams. All right, so here we go, position by position. The 49ers quarterbacks, the grade for them, A-. Jimmy Garoppolo was excellent in this game. He was efficient. He led all NFL quarterbacks at 12.5 yards per attempt on the weekend. He didn't throw an interception. That's big. He felt the pass rush. He escaped pressure. I mean, he did everything that you'd want Jimmy Garoppolo to do, because he hasn't done everything that you've wanted him to do since 2017. I think Jimmy Garoppolo was a good quarterback in 2019 coming off the ACL tear, but there was still something left to be desired about the mobility in his game. And then obviously 2020 was a complete train wreck of a season for all the 49ers, and Jimmy Garoppolo was playing hurt. So wouldn't you know it, playing with his ankle fully attached to the bone and to his leg, which wasn't the case last year with that high ankle sprain, leaving it very injured. Playing in those parameters, healthy, allowed Jimmy Garoppolo to look like a very, very good quarterback. Why A-, you ask? Well, nobody's really sure whose fault that initial fumble was, Alex Mack's or Jimmy Garoppolo's. Jimmy Garoppolo blamed himself. Alex Mack didn't speak because we don't have locker room access due to COVID this year. So Kyle Shanahan said it was 51% Alex Mack's fault and 49% Jimmy Garoppolo's fault. Either way, it was a bad turnover on the first play from scrimmage that didn't hurt the 49ers against the Lions, but might hurt them if they committed it against another team. I also thought that Jimmy missed one little pass there to Deebo Samuel on the in pattern on that slant that should have been a touchdown or would have been a big gainer because Kyle Shanahan called it perfectly. Throw was a little bit low. And I think he almost, there was one in traffic to George Kittle at another point in the game that I didn't like that throw. It was a little bit risky. So I can't give Jimmy a perfect A like I did in his performance against Seattle at the end of week 17 in 2019, for example, where he didn't throw a single incompletion in the entire second half. I have to, grade this one with a, putting the boxing gloves on. It wasn't a perfect game for Jimmy, but it was very good. And I thought that the big thing is that he managed the 49ers run game so efficiently. That pitch outside to Elijah Mitchell for the 38-yard touchdown, that was an audible. That was Jimmy Garoppolo pulling the right strings of the line of scrimmage. And that is why he is this team's best option to start at quarterback. Speaking of Elijah Mitchell, we'll move on to the running backs. I'm grading them at a B-. Why am I doing this? Well, Elijah Mitchell was great. If it was only up to him, I would give him an A-. He did not perform well on one of the pass protection assignments in front of Jimmy Garoppolo, but the rushing for Elijah Mitchell was awesome. He became the first running back since the merger in NFL history to gain over 100 yards in his rookie debut if that running back had been drafted in the 4th round or lower. So we know that Elijah Mitchell was a 6th round pick. He goes over 100 yards in his first game, and that's something that's never been done before by a 6th round pick. Pretty cool. Shows how Kyle Shanahan is able to glean production out of these running backs, but the 49ers still need better pass protection from him, and they especially need better pass protection from JaMychal Hasty. Remember that Hasty made this team over Wayne Gallman because Hasty is a more talented runner. There was a very strong case for Wayne Gallman to make the football team because he's a great pass protector, and JaMychal Hasty, being an undersized back, is still sketchy in that regard. Well, we saw the reason why the 49ers were antsy last year, for example, to carry JaMychal Hasty on the 53-man roster, why they still consider him a project in many ways. And those 3 pressures that he gave up were no good. That drops the 49ers grade down to a B or so, maybe the B- territory. And the third thing that drops it is the unfortunate reality of Raheem Mostert's injury situation. He is now out for the entire season. And you hate to say it, but Raheem Mostert has been vulnerable to injuries throughout his time with the 49ers. And another injury does hurt the team. It's not Raheem's fault. It's just something that happened. But that chipped cartilage in his knee is going to keep him out of all of 2021. And it may be the last time that we saw Raheem Mostert in a 49ers uniform. So B- here. 49ers running backs were good, especially running the ball. That pass protection does need to get better, especially from JaMychal Hasty. The receivers and the tight ends. I'm going to bunch these guys together during grading situations this year because there's so much interchangeability in Kyle Shanahan's offense. George Kittle lined up out wide 5 times in this game. You'll see receivers coming in to block in line for the 49ers. Juwan Jennings did some good run blocking for the 49ers in this game, although he didn't get any catches. I mean, Kyle Shanahan's trying to architect the positionless skill position offense, and the further we go into his tenure, the more realistic that becomes, because his own guys have not only earned spots on the team, but they've developed into these positionless skill position roles. I thought Kittle was awesome in this game. If you go back and watch some of the film on some of the outside runs, he's double pancaking guys. The run blocking was excellent. And he looked like George Kittle on especially one of those yards after the catch runs downfield. So Kittle was good. I thought that Deebo Samuel was excellent for 9 catches for 187 yards, but he did have that fumble on the play that should have sealed the game. You got to give a lot of credit to Jimmy Garoppolo and Kyle Shanahan for trusting Jimmy Garoppolo on 3rd and 12 with the game on the line there to throw the ball, and Garoppolo made the right read, stayed away from Kittle, who was being covered in the flat, threw downfield to Deebo, who made yet another catch, but fumbled at the end. That's what's dropping the 49ers to an A-. But they got what they needed to from the receiving room between Deebo Samuel, Trent Sherfield, who scored that first touchdown, and George Kittle, who was just dominating downfield, blocking and catching the football. Everybody's asking about Brandon Ayuk. I talked about that in a different video. Ayuk was limited because he had been limited in practice in the previous 10 days with a hamstring issue. Trust me, over the course of this season, there are going to be games where Brandon Ayuk carries that number one receiver load that we saw Deebo Samuel carry in this game. It is a long season. It's going to happen. And I don't grade the receiver room based on somebody being a little bit hampered by missing practice time due to the hamstring injury. I grade the receiver room based on what the depth of the 49ers, what the totality of the room gave them, and the totality of the room between 9 for 187 from Deebo Samuel, between Trent Sherfield's touchdown and a few catches downfield, and between what George Kittle did. I think the receiving room was good. We'll give him an A-. That Deebo fumble at the end knocks him down. This is a big one right here, the 49ers offensive line. I have been very vocal about criticizing the tenuousness of the 49ers' depth up front. I think if injuries happen up front, this team is in a vulnerable position. However, at least yet, injuries have not happened, and I do really like the 49ers starting offensive line 1 through 5. Trent Williams mauled people as usual. He was downfield doing what he was supposed to do, kept Jimmy Garoppolo's blind side clean. Laken Tomlinson had a good game as well. Alex Mack, if you talk to Kyle Shanahan, Alex Mack at his center position gets a lot of credit for the fact the 49ers were averaging 10 yards a carry for a lot of this game. He gets a lot of credit for the fact that Jimmy Garoppolo was kept relatively clean. He gets a lot of credit for the fact that the safety rotations of that Lions defense were properly identified. Alex Mack, former All-Pro, NFL Center of the Decade in the 2010s, has the ability to make all of the other 49ers offensive linemen better, and I think that definitely happened in this game. Now, of course, there was the fumbled snap, but hey, if that's a share blame situation between Mack and Garoppolo, we'll cut the offensive line some slack in this one, because last year the 49ers center play was terrible as they got to the third and fourth string centers, and we saw what a big difference it could make to have a true veteran capable center in there with Alex Mack. Daniel Brunskill was also good in this game. We didn't hear much from Daniel Brunskill. I think he allowed a pressure. That was about it, but he was good in run blocking. And I thought that Mike McGlinchey was good too. I thought that the starting 5 49ers offensive linemen put together an effort that this team can build on moving forward. Now, will it get harder? Yes. The Lions were beaten up front, and it was the Lions. But you have to start somewhere, and that 49ers performance up front might have been better than any performance that they delivered up front last season. Now, you just got to knock on wood right here, knock on wood that they stay healthy. On to the defensive line. I have high expectations for the 49ers defensive line. So if the curve grading-wise here is a little bit more strict, don't blame me, because this is the heartbeat of this football team. Let's set this out there first. There are 2 categories of 49ers defensive linemen. They're exterior defensive linemen, the ends, right? The edge rushers. D. Ford, Nick Bosa, Samson Ebukam. Bosa and Ford especially were awesome in this game. A+ for both Bosa and Ford. Guess how many snaps D. Ford delivered after people thought that he would retire or whatever? 30 quality snaps for the 49ers. Nick Bosa, something like 40 quality snaps for the 49ers. Great against the pass, great against the run. I mean, the ends did their job. The edges did their job. And even though Samson Ebukam was a little bit more quiet than those 2 guys, he delivered the pressure on the final 4th down of the game to force that incompletion from Jared Goff. So the 3 primary edge rushers for the 49ers board, Ford, Bosa, and Ebukam, all got the job done. They deserve an A to an A+. It's the interior that is trickier. And I'm going to talk about Eric Armstead separately, because I understand he played mostly out on the edge. But the 49ers were missing Javon Kinlaw, right? They're missing Maurice Hurst. They're going to need to dig deep and find a way to better gobble up blocks on the inside. Because what the Detroit Lions did under their new offensive coordinator, Anthony Lynn, is they ran straight at the 49ers. And what that did is it made the 49ers play on their heels and not on their toes. And when the 49ers defense is on its heels, it cannot pass rush nearly as much as it wants to. So the key to stopping this domino effect is stopping the run. That's why the 49ers picked Javon Kinlaw in the 1st round of the 2020 draft, because they know that he's a massive body that can absorb double teams and stop the interior run plays that the Detroit Lions saw a lot of success with against the 49ers. But the 49ers didn't have Kinlaw, and there was a play where Kentavious Street, who I find to be an undersized defensive tackle, was just getting pushed off the line of scrimmage. He's behind that line of scrimmage. You got to set that spot. And I think it's tough for a guy like Street, who did have his first career sack, so all credit to him, has definitely looked better this year than in years prior. But it's tough for a guy like Street to take on that 3-tech, 1-tech role that Javon Kinlaw can handle for the 49ers in key situations, because he just doesn't have the size to, anchor himself down and make sure that he doesn't get bowled over moving backwards. So the 49ers are at a personnel disadvantage without Kinlaw, and it is no coincidence that the interior lineman, the only one who really acquitted himself well throughout the whole game in run and pass defense, to me, was DJ Jones, because he's that 300-plus pounder who was able to anchor down there in the middle and get the job done from his point of view. But you need more than one of those guys. That's why Javon Kinlaw is so important. 49ers didn't have him, so I thought that Givens got pushed around a bit. I thought that Kentavious Street got pushed around a bit. I thought that Zach Kerr got pushed around a bit, and Javon Kinlaw can't return soon enough. He's had several straight days of good workouts. 49ers are hopeful that he'll be back against the Eagles, and I think that's a huge injury story to watch, because, like it or not, good decision or not, the 49ers have put a lot of eggs in Javon Kinlaw's basket. He's the one that can unlock this defense's style of play. If he does his job in the middle, it doesn't need to be sacks. It needs to be block gobbling and run stopping. That allows the edge rushers, who I said had a great game, to really get to work. This grade will be an A if the 49ers can do that, but it was that interior defense that was a little shaky, especially against the run, that pushes the 49ers D-line down to a B-. The linebackers are related to this, and I'll explain why. The 49ers play a wide 9 defensively. So that is so that the edge rushers have benefit that doesn't come in a standard alignment. Wide 9 elongates the defensive line and allows the edge rushers to come in hot off the very edge. They're way out there. That allows their athleticism to be put on display on islands against defensive tackles. It also allows interior rushers to operate with more space against typically less athletic interior linemen like guards and centers. This is where Eric Armstead comes in. So even when I'm talking about linebackers, I'm going to talk about Eric Armstead now. He played 40 snaps on the outside as a defensive end and 16 snaps as a defensive tackle. When the 49ers get into more pass rushing situations where opponents are forced to throw the ball, where they don't have much of a running threat, the 49ers can move Eric Armstead inside with greater regularity. Within the context of the wide 9, that is awesome, because Armstead is huge and he's athletic, and that's where you can beat guards on the inside. In fact, in 2019, when Armstead had 9.5 sacks, all of those sacks came when he was lined up on the inside. Armstead was good in this game. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise. He had 8 or 9 pressures in this game. He's a power rusher. He's definitely not a finesse rusher, but at 6'8" and however much he weighs, 290 or whatever, he is always stronger and has better leverage than the guy that he's rushing against. So Eric Armstead collapses pockets. It might not be the same scissor move that Nick Bosa has. It might not be the same speed move or the same jab move that Dee Ford has. But trust me, Eric Armstead is impacting these games. And he was good again. But the 49ers really, in an ideal world, want him rushing more from the inside. The reason that I bring up the linebackers in this discussion is because the linebackers are such an integral part of support for the wide 9 defense. When the defensive line is elongated to allow players like Armstead room to operate and show off that power and athleticism, the gaps are going to be bigger up the middle. When the gaps are bigger up the middle, the linebackers have to be faster and they have to be instinctive to plug those holes. I do not think that the 49ers linebackers were good against the run and finding the right gap, especially on those interior runs against the Lions. That drops their grade down to a B-. I do think the 49ers linebackers, who are all safety DB type builds, were good in pass protection. Dre Greenlaw had a pick 6. Fred Warner never seems to blink in pass protection. That was all fun and games. That was all great. But the 49ers linebackers do need to be better stopping the run and getting in that correct gap. Kyle Shanahan even said so. He said, hey, defense and stopping the run is an 11-man effort. We have to get better in that regard. My final grade comes for the 49ers defensive backs. This one is tough because, Jason Verrett was lost for the season. On the other side, you had Deommodore Lenoir, who was good, but not great, and he did get away with a deep pass there at the very end. All things told, though, very successful debut for Diamador Lenore, and the 49ers can rest a little bit easier knowing that they don't have a total liability there as they go through some harder times at the cornerback position. They're going to really try to patch things through with some veterans as a rush over coverage team. But there were some penalties committed that I don't think were good. Jaquaski Tart had that one helmet-to-helmet hit. That was a pretty obvious penalty. Otherwise, I thought Tart was okay. I thought that he's back in week one, which some people didn't expect with that turf toe, but he was moving well on the back end, and he made a nice tackle for loss on the back end. So that was good. I didn't like the penalty. And I generally like Jimmy Ward's tackling as the last line of defense, except for that one touchdown to DeAndre Swift for Detroit, where Jimmy Ward just completely whiffed. So that, I have high expectations for the 49ers defensive backfield. I take partial grades away for a couple of those whiffs. Obviously, things didn't go well with Jason Verrett. And then there's still so many questions. Ambry Thomas didn't look good when he came in. Dante Johnson, obviously, we know who he is. He didn't look great when he came in. I'm going to give it a C+. And I think the 49ers just need a little kick in the butt here in the secondary to make sure that this unit pulls its weight. We know that they're not going to go out there and pick up any current All-Pros. Maybe down the road, they'll get Richard Sherman. They do have Josh Norman, a former Pro Bowler. They did pick up Drake Kirkpatrick. But these are all guys who are good players. They're good veterans. But this team is going to rely on that pass rush over the secondary to get the job done, to be the locomotive that drives the defense. Still, that being said, the NFC West, if you look back at the graph that I put up a little bit earlier, boy, the NFC West is strong. Yeah, the 49ers are way up here in the top right, but you also have a bunch of other NFC West teams as tier one teams. They all have quarterbacks. They all have receivers. That means the 49ers DBs have to step it up, and we'll see if that happens, because not everybody's going to be Jared Goff and the hapless Lions who didn't really have a wide receiving corps. So it will be a big test for the 49ers, an incremental test against the Eagles. Anyway, hope you enjoyed this. Please make sure that you subscribe to this channel if you haven't yet. Trying to grow the audience so I can do more of these moving on to next week. All right, everybody, take care.